like $20,000 just sitting in your account right there. And they just were like, they didn't see it as real. And so one of the reasons why women come to me is that they feel like they're making a good salary and they're just not seeing it in, their day to day.
This is Successfully Retired with Hamilton Brandenburg. Today's guest works with high-earning women in tech who make great money, but oftentimes still feel anxious, disorganized, and unsure about their own financial future. She supports women who look successful on paper, but might feel that one layoff or a breakup or career change is really all it takes for them to start losing control. So they're not very confident always managing their money before they meet her. And her job is to help them feel secure and help them feel like, hey, I'm not trapped in my situation. Welcome to the show, Alana D'Angelica. How are you doing? It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
And you nailed the intro.
That's awesome. Great. I'm glad. So you had a background. You worked at Morgan Stanley.
Yeah.
You worked for Indeed.
Yep.
So some pretty big companies. Tell me a little bit about what made you want to get into financial coaching.
Yeah, great question. So I always loved finance from when I was getting my bachelor's degree. I took a finance 101 class and then I was like, this is for me. Left, school and joined Morgan Stanley. I really tried hard to get a good job in finance. And I was at Morgan Stanley for about 5 years, doing two different kind of roles. My last role being client services for hedge funds, basically post-sale operations.
Gotcha.
On the institutional investor side.
Yeah.
I loved the work, but then in 2009, the economy crashed and I was young and hungry and there was no work to do. And I was like hearing all these stories about people getting laid off and getting like a year's severance. Well, that wasn't me. They kept me and my team on board, but we had nothing to do.
No.
And I was young and hungry and I decided to make a switch to tech. Okay. And so moved into tech, got very lucky joining Indeed.com, a startup of less than 50 people. And was there for 8.5 years. Wow. As it grew from 50 to 6,000 during my time there. So it was a rocket ship tech company, double, triple revenue year after year after year. And I enjoyed that as well. And in 2018, I decided that I was in a different place where the 6,000 person company was not the little startup I joined. And I took a career break. I had my second child. And during that time, I found the FIRE movement and also just the idea of financial coaching. So just to shout out some of the influencers and inspiration. I was listening to Choose FI podcast. I was listening to Afford Anything podcast. I was like, these are my people. This is like what I've always been, just the mindset around FIRE and just being really smart about your expenses and things like that. And then I learned about financial coaching through a Facebook group and how else did I learn about it? But Kelsa Dickey's Facebook group, I joined and kind of learned like about the profession. And I always considered like maybe being an advisor or planner, but it didn't exactly speak to me in the way that I wanted to dive deep into people's expenses, their banking, their credit score. Certainly, I also have a lot of interest in investing, but I didn't want to manage someone's assets. So learned about the financial coaching route, started that up during my career break, and was really just working with clients pro bono. And then my husband got laid off. And so we both couldn't be jobless. And he had started his own business on his own. And it was his time to go be an entrepreneur. So I went back to work and I did some light financial coaching through the next, 6 years or so in tech. But then I got laid off in 2023 and decided this is my year to start the financial coaching business. So that's kind of the whole story of how I got here.
So I'm going to back up real quick because I'm just curious. When you joined Indeed, you were part of a 50-person company, you said?
Yeah.
I can't imagine Indeed. I can't remember when it was like 50 people. So what were you doing there?
It was a real startup. So I actually lived in New York City and the company itself was in Stamford, Connecticut. There was no New York City office, so I had to reverse commute from New York City to Connecticut. But I took the leap in the first place because I had never seen anything like this before. You could wear jeans to work, which didn't happen in the finance world where I came from before.
Morgan Stanley, definitely.
And they had tons of free snacks. And that was my motivation to go.
Awesome. I love it.
They gave me options. I was like, I really had I don't know, in my 20s, like really narrow-minded. So I joined there. It was 50 people. I can tell you that. So there I started in client services, and that meant working with the employers that were using Indeed to advertise.
Okay.
So that group of customers we managed them out of a spreadsheet. It wasn't even a Google Drive. It was a Excel document I sent around. Yeah. And then we all had the latest updated version. Eventually we had a homegrown CRM. And then towards ending my time there, we moved over to Salesforce. But anyway, it was truly a startup. We had that many customers that a spreadsheet was good enough.
So by the time you ended, you felt like, hey, this was really cool. I got to see this company grow. I got to almost be like, hey, it's like when you're starting a family, you get to have like the whole life cycle of starting the family versus now.
Yeah.
It's this huge, big thing. And you realize, you know what, that wasn't the thing I joined. It wasn't what I started out with. And it's been a great ride. And you kind of knew when to chase the next big thing. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
What I found there and at other big companies that I worked with later on, it's just that when a company gets too big, there's a lot of duplication of effort. And that was very frustrating for me.
Yeah.
And the second piece was back in the early days as a leader. So eventually I grew into management and leadership. Eventually I had a team of over 500 people. And in the early days, I could move fast with my team. And in the later days, there was a lot of red tape around getting things done, and that makes things harder. So I needed more autonomy, essentially.
Small companies move a lot faster than big ones, and they're a lot more nimble. And I think a lot of times, I used to work at a really big firm as well. And I started my own independent practice. And I'd say probably a really big part of it is just that. It wasn't that it was a bad company. It wasn't that I didn't like the people who were there. It was like, hey, I can be a lot more nimble and make decisions a lot more quickly that are in the best interest of my clients if I'm the only decision maker. And it's not coming from home office from some board that I don't even know the people who are on, and they just decided this is how all the advisors are going to run their practices. But there's something to be said for just the freedom of being on a small company or at a small team where you have a lot of flexibility. And I bet a lot of your clients who you work with have gone through a lot of similar transitions like you. Tell me a little bit about your business as it is today. Who do you work with and what do you do?
Yeah. So after I started the business or restarted the business in late 23, I mostly prior to that had worked with single women, divorcing women, or widowing women, and decided to keep that in place. Generally, I'm looking at women aged 25 to 40 in this space because as they get older, I don't feel I have as much value. I'm big on fire and all of that. I don't have as much value when you just look at the timeline for compounding and things like that. And I don't know all the creative strategies at that point.
Sure.
So I'm looking at single women, typically working in tech. And the reason why I focus on tech is just through that time that I managed teams in tech, I learned a lot about salary, compensation, perks and benefits, RSUs, stock options, just career negotiation and things like that. So I do help women with that. So typical client is a professional woman working in tech, age 25 to 40 and not married. I do have some couples who are married, and generally it's when their finances are separate.
So tell me about what are some of the common problems that your coaching clients experience on a day-to-day. I feel like a lot of times we start businesses, occasionally we'll start with this great product or solution in mind, but when the customer or the client finds us, it's just because they had something that was keeping them up. They don't care about half the stuff that we've thought about. They love that after they get to us and we can connect it to them. But at first it's just like, hey, this is a pain point I have. How do I fix this? And then boom, they see you on social media, they get a referral, whatever, and they're working with you. So what are some of those common pain points and frustrations that the women who you're working with deal with that maybe drive them to work with you to begin with?
Yeah, I think it all started when I was leading teams of women and men, and women were coming to me frequently, just kind of suggesting that they weren't making enough money. And I always did what I could if they were performing well and deserved more and looking at the market. But I also try to work with them just on their compensation. So, from what are you withholding in your taxes to are you maxing out your 401k? Are you maxing out your 401k match? Are you choosing a health plan that's just you're paying way too much than you should and you don't need all that as a single healthy person? So I would kind of go through, we gave stock options at my last employer, X, we gave RSUs, and I would find that employees just didn't even think it was anything great. And I was like, that's like $20,000 just sitting in your account right there. And they just were like, they didn't see it as real. So I think it started with that kind of recognizing that anyone on my team really just didn't understand their compensation and benefits. And so one of the things, or one of the reasons why women come to me, is that they feel like they're making a good salary and they're just not seeing it in their day to day. So it starts with, are they optimizing everything that their employer is offering them? And then we tend to look at expenses as well. And so that's kind of the second thing that I see with women who come to work with me. Their expenses have just gotten out of control. And here's why. Here's what happens. So you start your first job, you get a paycheck, that's cool. You start to get more complex expenses as you grow, like, your living situation and your groceries and all of the different things and your phone. And then you just get too busy to ever look back. And so the subscriptions add up and, your free trials go away and your limited time offers start to double and you never look back. And then all of a sudden you are spending too much money on the different essential costs. And so I tend to dig deep into expenses with women to get them to a place where they're first, not paying more than they should on their fixed expenses. And then we look to their variable expenses. It's like, okay, the things that are in your control, where can you kind of let some things go?
Spending is always such an interesting facet of personal finance when you look at expenses, because for many people, when they meet with a financial coach or their financial advisor, they might come to it feeling like a lot of shame around spending. And like, I really don't want to crack this open. Like, I've always joked that the best way to like start a fight is just to sit down with a couple and ask them about their budget, and to find out really quickly that they're expense enemies, not budget buddies. Right. But that's not a flaw, a one individual flaw. That's something that we all do, because I think for many of us, we spend our 20s hustling and trying to get into a good place and get established. And when those paychecks start rolling in, it's very easy to feel like, hey, I've earned this. And lifestyle creep starts. And to a degree, that is true. We have earned that. But we want to make sure that we're spending in a sustainable way, and we're spending on things that are actually a value add, that actually connect with what's important to us, not just, to your point, another silly subscription. I don't know, Paramount Plus subscription. Like, oh, I'm not watching anything on Paramount Plus. No offense to any Paramount executives. You can get to this place where you all of a sudden start thinking, okay, where's all this money going to? I'm making great money, but this doesn't equate to a great life unless you're very intentional with your spending. And that doesn't mean not spending. That doesn't mean beating yourself over the head for having a good time. It just means spending on things where you're actually going to get value out of that and you're actually going to enjoy it. And it's not just going to be another fluff purchase, right?
Yeah. You could ask any of my former clients if I'm like really scrutinizing their spending, and it's not. But sometimes they come to me with goals and I have to remind them of their goals.
Yes.
For example, I have a client who really wants to catch up on retirement. She did not save throughout her 20s or 30s, and now she's coming into her late 30s with almost nothing. And so when we go through her expenses and kind of I'm helping her understand, which of these are critical and not, and she seems a little resistant on moving somewhere, I try to just remind her of like, you came to me with this goal, right? About catching up on your retirement. We need to find it somewhere. Where are we finding it, right? And it's for them to figure out. But, I have high expenses in certain areas too, as a financial coach who is, really supposed to be budget savvy. Certain things add up with 3 kids, right? But, I want to make sure that that's where I want to spend my money, and then everything else should be at the minimum that it needs to be.
One like weird way that principle, not with money, but just the principle of like you can only have so much capacity, so you have to do what's important, has shown up in my life in a weird way, like in the past few weeks, is that I've cut back like a lot on coffee. And I did not try to. I don't have a goal of not having coffee, but what I did is I started having really high protein breakfasts, drinking a lot of water first thing in the morning. And so like after I have like 4 eggs and a huge bowl of Greek yogurt and a protein shake with water, I don't really have any room for like coffee. So it's weird. Like when you make goals, sometimes you prioritize, hey, this one little weird thing is going to be important to me, whether it's a financial thing or a diet or lifestyle, then other stuff just gets pushed out, and you have to go back and sometimes say, okay, why am I doing this? This is important to me to do this. And so even if other things are not bad, there's not always room for them at the table when you have a very important goal like saving for retirement. Maybe the girls trip every, quarter is a great thing, but maybe it just doesn't fit on the table when you have until you hit a big milestone and then you treat yourself or whatever your process is. And that's a great question. Tell me about your process. So do your coaching clients work with you indefinitely or for shorter engagements?
So my main program is a 6-month one-to-one program.
Okay.
We meet bi-weekly, and a couple of things. So one, most of the topics are standard, but then I customize based on the particular person. So we might spend a lot of time on expenses with certain people. With other people, it might be on debt pay down. In this particular case that I was just talking about, she really wants to catch up on retirement. So I've done several sessions on retirement, looking at her current retirement accounts, helping her to transfer them and merge them together. Sometimes we're doing, different calculations to look at, where she could be if she changed different contributions, all those things. So those are the main topics, I would say: expense optimization, banking, credit score, debt pay down, investing, DIY investing. So kind of getting them set up to play with the market on their own. Even if they plan to use someone to manage their assets in the future, I want them to understand how it works.
Yes.
And not huge. Trust the advisor, whoever, blindly.
I think that as a financial advisor, I think that's really good. And I think a lot of times there's this mentality, and there's advisors who do it, but where advisors can create complexity that doesn't exist in order to kind of justify their existence. That's not a great business model. But it's really bad for the consumer too, because if anything, even if that advisor does everything great for them, they're going to have a lot of uncertainty and a lot of anxiety, and they're probably going to have a lot of like second guessing themselves as a person. So I think that a best case scenario, if somebody hires an investment advisor because they want to delegate, it shouldn't be because they don't understand their investments. It should be because they're choosing to delegate.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all for that. I love to hear that. I think both me personally, I've had a bad experience with an advisor. When I joined Indeed, I got those stock options, and yay, they eventually paid out. And I was still in my 20s and I didn't know what to do with it. And so I handed it off to an advisor. And 2 years later, I looked at it and he was losing me money in the market. And actually the thing that tipped me off to look into what my portfolio was doing was that he approached me about a VUL, variable universal life insurance product, which then I started Googling and saw a lot of just bad reviews about this particular product in my use case. And then I started looking at my portfolio and seeing that I wasn't making any money after 2 years. And this was in the 2012 to 2016 range, somewhere around there.
And a nice bull market.
Yeah, so it didn't make any sense. He made it extremely difficult for me to transfer my money out of the firm, so much so that I made a FINRA complaint, and then I never looked back.
That sucks. Well, on behalf of all the good financial advisors in the world, I apologize for your experience, because that is a nightmare, and I'm so sorry you had to deal with it.
I actually had to hire another advisor to help me get my money out, and that one was a good one. So sometimes the DIY investing, then there's 2 sessions that I do that are a little more kind of internal facing. One is I help them just create a financial vision. This is the starting session that we do. And it's more like just around their vision for their life and their career, their beliefs, their values. You want to make more money, you want to save more money. Why? What are you striving for? So that's one of the first sessions I do. And then towards the end, I also do a session with them on what I call career exploration, because a lot of the times their financial goals don't necessarily align with their career. So what are you doing to bring that closer together? And for that session, I use a framework called Ikigai. It's a Japanese term around basically doing your life's perfect. Some information about this on my website, but ultimately it's about doing what you love plus what the world needs plus what you're good at and something that someone will pay you for. And when you can find yourself in a place where all of those things kind of line up, then that's your life's work. And so I really love this. I actually lived in Japan for some months back in 2012 as well. When I worked at Indeed, they were starting an office there, and I got introduced to a lot of different Japanese concepts, and that one always really stuck with me.
That's awesome. So you're running these programs for 6 months. Do people oftentimes like extend them? Do you get repeat clients, or do you usually work on kind of like one thing at a time and then they move off onto the world? And what does that ongoing kind of business model look like? Typically, I guess.
So I have clients that complete the 6 months and they're good for a while. I tend to check in with them like maybe another 6 months later. I also automate reminders out to them every month for the following 6 months to just say, hey, we had said this, are you on track? And sometimes they're replying, and sometimes we need to have a one-off session. I have some clients who just want to kind of stick with a monthly session post 6 months. And then I also have an investing community for women. So this is a group of women that meet monthly. It's like kind of totally separate from my coaching package. It's only focused on investing. And basically, we're doing workshops where I'm leading some of the conversations in areas that I have expertise, kind of the more foundational finance stuff. And then I'm bringing in experts on different topics. So I definitely don't have expertise on real estate investing, although I do own a short-term rental, but there's a lot more you can do.
Real estate investing is like a humongous topic. It can mean
Real estate is one. Socially responsible investing, crypto, love it or hate it. I just want to learn about it. And so I want my community to learn about it. So different topics like that. And so my hope is that my clients can go through the 6-month program and then graduate into the community as well.
And feel like they're empowered, feel like they're on track for their goals. They have clarity about their vision, about what's important to them, and they don't feel bad about their spending. They know what they're spending.
Exactly. And sometimes they're investing on their own, and sometimes they're using an advisor and they just want to understand what's going on.
Absolutely. I think the best thing that people can do is just give away as much information for free, because educated consumers make great choices. There's no threat from people learning how to build their own ship if that's what they want to do. Tell me about something this is kind of one of the reasons why I got you on the podcast. I want to hear some conventional money tips for couples that you think are wrong. Like what does that look like from Alana's perspective? What do couples get wrong about this?
My hottest take has always been that couples shouldn't dual income couples. If there's not dual income, then this won't make sense. But dual income couples should not fully combine their finances. And there's a couple of reasons why I feel this way. The first is my very early clients were 2 divorcing women and one who had just widowed, and just the untangling of the finances in both of these situations was really, really difficult.
Yes.
And so that experience combined just with my own personal experiences, I'll share with you that me and my partner, when I learned about FIRE, I was obsessed, and I was telling him about it. And he was like, first of all, he was like, nah, he can retire at 40 or 30. What? That's crazy. He just didn't believe it. And then second, he was just like, that's not really a goal of mine. I like working. He had that point had grew his own business, and he had a really flexible schedule and things like that. And he's like, I don't mind it. I'm good. If that's what you want to go for, honey, go for it. But
yes,
he wasn't so into it. Now lately he's kind of like, all right, I'm trying to catch up with you. But anyway, so I really committed to hyper saving in my personal retirement account, and he did not, because that was not of interest to him. And honestly, I feel that like that's how it should be. Your true financial goals are personal.
Yes.
So what I recommend to my clients who are either in a position to make changes to their dual income finances, or women who are preparing for marriage, is to keep your expenses, or your keep some personal savings and checking. So here's how it works. So I feel like your personal checking is for your personal expenses, right? And for a woman, that might be, your self-care, or your gym membership, or the books you like to read, or your shopping, things like that. Your personal savings is for any personal short-term goals. And your personal investing account is for your personal long-term goals, like that legacy or fire or whatever it is. And so that's number one. Number two is to have a joint account for your joint expenses, your joint savings. And maybe once you've got that kind of operationally sound, there are joint goals that are longer term that you might want to do some joint investing for. And so what that looks like is figuring out what your monthly expenses are, both fixed and variable. So if your monthly expenses are $3,000 a month, and that's like your shared expenses, your rent or your mortgage, your kids' stuff, your, electricity, all of those things, your cars, if you're kind of sharing cars and things like that, all of that, figure it out, and then figure out how much you're putting into your joint checking account. Figure out your joint goals. Like that could be travel. We want a 10K travel budget this year, things like that. Put that in a joint savings account. And then if you exceed it, it's actually a really good place to have some conversations about your spending, because when you're both dumping all your money into one spot, sometimes those conversations never happen until like you're going into the negative, right? And if you never are, it's never, we're just paying our credit card bills and that's it.
Yeah,
And so
you're
I
on
feel,
such an autopilot that you don't realize, because well, I want to pause here because I don't want to distract you from this, but what I
yeah,
love is that this is it's starting, I would say, in my opinion, it's starting from a place not of scarcity, but of abundance, and of saying, hey, look, we're not keeping our money separate because we're going into this distrustful, or this is not a negative thing. This is more like a, let's be intentional. Let's say, hey,
right,
these are some of my me as a person, I have personal expenses. Those are mine to bear.
right.
And then we as a couple and as a unit have things that we do together. And so just being intentional with how you earmark where your money goes is probably 80% of the battle of that people struggle with, is just doing things on autopilot, looking back at the end of the month and realizing we put too much on the credit card. We said we wanted to take a trip, but we didn't, because we're not just being deliberate about where we're doing this with our money.
Yeah, totally. And it shows up in the day to day too. You see all these memes on Instagram. Well, maybe it's not in your algorithm, but it's in mine as a mom and a woman, where it's like my husband sees all the Amazon packages coming in and
I
here's
hate
his
those.
face or whatever, and I'm like, why is your husband judging you if they're personal expenses of yours? Like, why
Yeah.
does he care? And I'm the cheaper one. I'm the frugal one in this household.
Yeah.
And when my husband buys some shirts that I'm like, that's an expensive brand, I don't say anything. I say something in my head, but
Yes.
that's where he's spending his money, and that's what he wants to do, and that's
Yeah.
it.
As somebody who is a one income household with a wife and kids, I can tell you I hate those kinds of reels about shaming other people about their spending.
Yeah.
And every couple goes through their own evolution of how they're dealing with finances, how they talk about it together. But I don't I don't beat my wife up over what she spends on. We talk about, hey, here's how much money we make, here's how much we need to do. And outside of that, if it's kind of for us, is our approach is hey, if I do a really big treat yourself purchase, then I expect that double of that needs to be in the budget, because I expect she should be able to have an equally big, whether that's
Yeah.
for something she transfers to her own individual account and she does something big later with it, or whether it's a big fun thing that she wants to do that month. It shouldn't be a tug of war. I feel like that's one of the
Yeah.
things that the
I love that.
algorithms push really hard, and it's super super toxic for marriages.
you'll see me commenting on those like, come on, girls, like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So I love your approach on how so many of the money things that are taught to dual income families or that are just rules of thumb that are put out there are really not foundational for helping people be intentional with their life and be successful. Do you feel like, here's kind of a weird question. Do you feel like there's something in particular that you find yourself working on with your coaching clients? And maybe we've talked about it, maybe we haven't, but that you kind of look back and you think, man, I wish that Alana had somebody tell her this at Indeed, 50 people, first awesome tech job. Like, I could have used this. What's something that what you think would have been really helpful to you on your journey that you're able to now help other women with as they go through their careers and their family finances?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I would say the first thing that's coming to mind for me is more recently, I've just had 2 inquiries on my coaching from very young people. Actually, one was male and one was a female, and both of them were 24. And I had some initial conversations with them. One is moving forward, and basically I just got so excited to kind of show them what they can do if they start saving for retirement now at 24. And like we just discussed, early retirement is not appealing for everyone or not something that everyone thinks about, but just even the idea of that as an option, like it was not even in my mind at that age. And even just, even taking a pause, like what I explained to both of them was, you're in a great place. Like, one of them's living at home. The other one just has a very low expenses. Like, you can now save so much for retirement that maybe when you're 32, when you start to have children, expenses get higher. You could take a pause for a little bit and still be okay. But now is the time to do it, and kind of just showing them the power of compounding and all of that. I think that's like the number one thing that really, gosh, I wish I knew. I don't even remember when I started saving for retirement, but it wasn't right away. I had some student loans to pay down and things like that. I was really focused on that. And one of these clients also has student loan debt, but we're still going to put some money in for retirement and also try to reduce the rates on his his private loans, not his federal loans. So yeah, so that's number one. Besides that, I would just say that responsible use of credit cards is really important at that kind of younger age, which I was just pretty free with them.
We're all
I got
YOLO it's on something in our 20s, and for a lot of us, yeah, at least go through a little bit of a
you're
credit
like,
card.
holy cow, free money. I put
You know,
myself into some debt, and I had to learn the hard way how to pay it down.
it's cool though, because like a lot of people at that age, to your point, they're not thinking about retirement. As somebody who
They're just starting their job. Why would they?
exactly, yeah, they're
That's
all like, oh, I don't like working. I don't know, I'll retire one day. But as somebody who I work with people kind of on the other end of the spectrum, and most of the clients who I work with are like, hey, we're retiring in 3 months or we're retiring in a year, and that you would be surprised the number of times that it's because of like a health problem for themselves or maybe one of their kids or a family member they need to step back and take care of. So people oftentimes do not choose their retirement date based off of once the nest egg hits that amount or at this certain
yeah,
age I'm eligible. They do it because life can
out of
push
circumstance.
them
Yeah.
into that. Yes. And if you had an extra of 3 or 4 or 5 years of compounding growth in your early 20s, listen, and you don't need to live off of ramen noodles and like neglect your health and all these other things just for retirement. You can obsess over any great goal too much. But if you do get started early, even if you love your job and you're one of those people who's like me and thinks that, I'll die at my desk one day working, it gives you the option to not. And you're giving your future self flexibility for life not going perfect and not going according to plan, which that sounds like common sense to everybody. But yeah, of course I would do that. But how do we actually approach it? Life will go perfectly and according to plan. I don't need to start saving for this now because everything will be fine later. But it's really just building those muscles of delayed gratification of
Hmm.
what can I save? If I have $100 a month in my budget that I can save, I'm going to start with 50 or 75. And once I get that habit built, I'm going to start raising that up so that I feel good about myself versus starting at 200 and having to back it down the next month because I got overeager. Yeah, that's just consistency. Really pays off a lot once you get to being in your 50s or 60s. And sometimes you have to stop working, right?
Yeah. That's all great feedback. And like I said earlier, like I tend to not work with people approaching retirement because I just feel like I don't have that much value to give them. But that earlier side, I'm just like, wow.
It
It's
makes a
like,
big difference. Yeah, it does. Well, props to you too for having a niche and sticking with it. Most financial advisors niches everybody who has money. So
yeah.
I think the financial advisor community could learn a lot from the financial coach community and be specific about who they work with. Do you ever find people who are not a good fit for your services, and how do you handle that?
Yeah. So in general, I market very specifically. Like I market to single women working in tech. Tech is not exclusive. It's just that like I can provide a lot of additional insight into
Yeah.
how to navigate in tech companies and their compensation and benefits. Occasionally I'm getting men, occasionally I'm getting couples, and it really just depends on the situation and whether I can help them. I do not want to be a financial therapist, which is in a whole nother profession
Yes.
where especially if there's some emotions tied around money from some past history or baggage or your childhood, that's not me. I'm really not good at that stuff. I am a strictly like, let's get into the spreadsheet and really dig deep and find where we can make things better. Certainly there is some emotion, especially people come to me overwhelmed, but there is an extent where I feel like maybe I'm not the best fit when it's kind of like they need more behavioral and undoing of just past trauma around money or whatever the situation is. So I would say that's one. And then two, where I don't step into is they're considering a divorce because I've worked with women who are actively going through divorce, but I often pass on to either a CDFA or even just a divorce coach or an attorney to understand like certain situations. Like you don't want to pay down joint debt if you're trying to say that it's joint in court or whatever, and some people feel that they're just overwhelmed and they want to just get rid of all the money problems that their partner contributed to. So I've also passed those on. So in most cases I try to pass them on. I'm in another coach's Facebook group and I will post there if I have someone who's not a good fit or looking for other professions like I said, divorce attorney, CDFA, etc.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of nuance with divorces, especially from state to state. If you're working across, like state laws can differ and local laws can vary a lot. And you want to have somebody who is an expert in those areas to really guide you.
Yeah,
And I think
because it's all about the money, unfortunately.
yeah, it really is. It really is. Well, how can people learn more about your practice if in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on LinkedIn the most. You can just find my name. I'm the only one in the world, Alana D'Angelica. You can go to my website, alanadangelica.com, no apostrophe. And then I'm also on Instagram, Alana D'Angelica. So yeah, find me any of those places.
Well, Alana, this was a truly wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for everything that you shared and your insight and for being on the call. And I really enjoyed it and I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. And I actually wanted to add one thing. I was on your website and I found that we have a commonality. So I also started working at 14 at KFC. You were at Chick-fil-A. I was at KFC. So I think, suggestion to the teens out there, your first job in chicken will set you up.
Fried chicken is it's the career builder for all the hot movers and shakers of the financial services. Definitely started. So you started at 14 also?
I did.
Awesome.
I had to be honest. My mom went into the shop and asked them if they would hire me, and they said, "Sure. Here's the application." So
that's awesome. Did you like it, or what was it like?
Oh yeah, I was like the boss there. It was great.
Yeah,
it was fun.
I like the teenage boss who running the place. It feels awesome, doesn't it?
Exactly, and great music. Some oldies but goodies, 80s and 90s music playing in there. It was great.
I love
free
it.
chicken.
Yeah, no bad part, none whatsoever. Awesome. Well, great talking to you and great meeting you, Alana. Thank you.
All right, you too. Have a great day.
This show reflects the personal opinions and viewpoints of myself, Hamilton Brandenburg, and my guests. Opinions and viewpoints are subject to change at any time without notice. No representation is made as to the accuracy, completeness, or relevance of the information presented. The information discussed is general in nature and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice, so consult with your tax, legal, and financial professionals about your specific situation. Past performance does not indicate future returns, and any indices mentioned are for reference and cannot be invested in directly. Brandenburg Financial Services is a DBA of CS Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor.